Whether you're ordering wings for the game, whipping up a 7-layer dip, or ordering pizza, there's something about football that makes you want to eat. And this football season, Uber Eats has the best deals on game day food. No matter what you're craving, from 2-for-1 pizza to buy one, get one wings, Uber Eats will be dropping new deals each week, all season long. Uber Eats, official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details.
Business taxes. Was stressing about all the time and all the money you spent on your taxes.
This is my bill?
Now Business Taxes is a TurboTax small business expert who does your taxes for you and offers year-round advice at no additional cost, so you can keep more money in your business. Now this is taxes. Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on turbotax.com/business. Only available with TurboTax Live full service.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
Hey, Chicago. What do you say? Cubs gonna win today.
Well, welcome back to another exciting edition of the Pointless Exercise Podcast. We're going to preview the World Series with national baseball expert David Brown. How are you this fine
Andy,
day?
I'm ready for the World Series. And did you know that the Yankees and the Dodgers are in the World Series and they've played each other in it before?
What?
Yeah.
Now, you're not going to tell me they used to be in the same city, are you? Because that would be crazy.
No. I would not. Yeah, they were. Although,
are they though? I mean, I don't know the difference between a borough and a city, and Brooklyn is not New York, but Brooklyn is New York, and
yeah, I was always confused. You know what confused me about this was the credits for Welcome Back, Kotter, in which there's a sign that says "Welcome to Brooklyn, the 4th largest city in the United States." So they're flexing a little. I think that's what it says, 4th. They're flexing a little bit because Brooklyn's such a big borough, which I guess is it county? It's not, though, because Manhattan is in Kings County, and I know that because of Law and Order. All I know is about New York is from television. So no, it's Brooklyn is like its own city, but it's not. I mean,
according to Wikipedia, and anything in Wikipedia has to be true. They're not allowed to print it on the internet if it's not true. The boroughs of New York City are the 5 major governmental districts that compose New York City: Bronx, Brooklyn, Manhattan, Queens, and Staten Island. Yeah. So they were in the same city. They weren't in the same borough. They were in the same city.
Right. They weren't in Joe Borough.
They were not. Didn't bleach their hair, anything.
I'm old enough to remember the last time they played. I don't really remember the Reggie Jackson one. I know of it from like rain delay highlights when they would show the old World Series. So I feel like I was there, hitting home run off Bert Hooton and Charlie Huff and one other guy, maybe 2 off Charlie Huff. And I also know those teams from Micro League Baseball, the video game, where you could pretend to be the 77 or 78 Yankees and all that. I remember the 81 World Series. It was the strike, and that was, those. I didn't think that Dodger team was very good, but they won anyway. So they got revenge on the Yankees for 77 and 78.
Yeah. I don't know if that's where my for some reason as a child I had a hatred of Ken Landreau. I don't know what he did. I didn't like him. Maybe he hit 167 in the 81 World Series. Maybe that's why I didn't like him. I don't know. I didn't like him. But yeah, that was the one he won.
And they had 3 MVPs. Like, how good could the World Series be if there were 3 MVPs? I think, was Joe Ferguson the MVP, one of them? And there were 2, Pedro Guerrero, and I got to look it up. That was Fernando Mania.
You mean they didn't have World Series MVPs? They had World Series MVPs.
They were tryhards.
Yeah, that doesn't seem good. That seems like they couldn't figure. We don't know who to give it to. Let's give it to those 3.
Yeah, it was Steve Yeager. Did I say Joe Ferguson? I had my backup Dodger catchers wrong. Ron Cey and future ex-Cub Ron Cey, Steve Yeager, and Pedro Guerrero were the 81 World Series MVPs.
I only know Steve Yeager from his work in Major League.
Yeah. The Duke
Temple. Yeah.
Right.
He threw at his own kid in a father-son game. Actually, I know what I remember Steve Yeager for. Todd Hundley kind of did the same thing. Yeager would not wear a T-shirt under his jersey and would only do like the bottom 2 buttons, which didn't matter when he was catching, but when he was batting, it was basically just all chest. And you're like, I know you were hot, but come on, could you do a couple of buttons, please? We don't need to see that. Just stop it.
Does Castellanos have a similar look? I think it looks like he's not wearing a T-shirt, but maybe there is one.
Yeah, and when he was with the Cubs, and he would do that, and so would what's his name? The guy I don't like, and not Ken Landreau.
How much hate can one man have for Ken Landreau?
Good Lord, I feel like I just had a stroke. This is bad. One Rookie of the Year for the Marlins. Part-time player for the Cubs. Once he got a hit when he called timeout and they swung anyway.
Juan Encarnacion.
Chris Coghlan. I don't know why I've blocked out Chris Coghlan from my memory. Coghlan, one of the things he did, he got in all the celebratory pictures. Like he immediately ran to you see that there's famous ones in 2016 of like Bryant and Rizzo hugging and Baez and Russell hugging. And then all of a sudden there's Chris Coghlan. He's in it too. Like, I know where the cameras are going. It's like, geez, just knock it off.
Right.
Yeah, that was nice that I just had a complete memory loss for a guy I've complained about forever. Shohei can add his name to the list of people who have won the Japan series and the World Series.
Right.
And I was looking at that list and I was like, wow, there's somebody who's not on here. It's a Cub that should be on here.
Yeah, I think I saw you tweet about this.
Munenori Kawasaki won 3 Japan series and he was on the 16 Cubs. But I guess he doesn't count because he wasn't on the roster. But he got a ring.
That's an oversight. I mean, I think it has to count. You don't have to be an active player.
He was in the dugout with his
he gets
weird
a
glasses.
Share, a playoff share.
He was having a great time.
As he does.
Yeah, you just show he's got a check stub somewhere. You could submit that to Twitter and see if they'll change the post. I don't know if it works that way or not. The 81 Dodgers
community notes. Yes.
Went 27-26 in the second half.
Oh.
Finished in 4th place.
You don't have to remind the Reds.
Yeah, the Reds were they the ones that
Yes.
They finished first in the second half, but they didn't make is that what they did?
No, they didn't finish first at all. But they had the best overall record in possibly Major League Baseball, but at least the National League. And did not get in the playoffs.
Wow.
I remember them walking out with a banner.
Kind of like the Cubs, 5th best record in the National League in the second half. For
that reminds me of Dansby Swanson's good finish, the 5th best record in the National League in the second half.
That's right.
Same family.
It all matters somehow. Oh, I typed in 1981 Cubs. Well, that was not a good team.
Was 82? Did Say go to the Cubs in 82? Was he one of Dallas Green's? Was that 83? Look it up.
That's a good question. When did Ron Say arrive?
83.
Was 83?
Yes.
Yeah, it had to be because Sandberg played second base in 82. Or third base in 82. God, I can't even talk. I'm off to a great start already.
I think I'm doing fine.
Yeah, you are. You're just gonna have to carry me for the entire.
Right. Ugh. Bend my knees.
Yeah. Don't lift with your back. Oh, I don't like the way they do these standings. I wanted to see them all, everything added up.
Yeah, you can do that.
This is annoying.
You can do that. You can hold on. I think you can do that.
Oh, I did. Here it is. Okay, I see.
At MLB.com,
you gotta go all the way to
you
the
can do that.
Yeah, the Reds were 66-42. That was the best record by 4 games in the National League. The Dodgers had the next best because they had a good.
Oh, I didn't know
half.
it was 4 games. Wow,
Yeah.
That makes it worse.
And they had the best record in baseball, and they didn't make the playoffs. So that's a pretty good playoff format you've devised. when the team with the most wins doesn't make it, congratulations.
They didn't think about that. I wonder if they didn't think about that, or if they did think about it and they just didn't care.
They finished a half game behind the Dodgers in the first half, and a game and a half behind the Astros in the second half. A half game. They missed the playoffs by a half a game. And there's we're not going to play that off. It should be impossible to miss the playoffs by a half game. But it was.
Yeah, it should. I think I remember having all these thoughts. I would have been about 9. And that's, that was just an ugly year. Fernando Mania was fine, but.
The Cubs barely missed it too, though. They were 15-37 in the first half, 17.5 games behind the Phillies. But they improved dramatically in the second half, 23-28, only 6 behind the Expos in the second half. So they really made a run there.
Why did Dallas Green even bother building a new tradition?
Cubs had the worst record in the National League, which I guess is why they drafted Sean Dunston the next year.
He's from Brooklyn, the 4th largest city in the United States.
Look at that. It all comes back around.
I think he was from Brooklyn, wasn't he? Or was he from the...
It's like on our new podcast, let's Google stuff.
He's from Brooklyn.
Yeah.
March 21st, 1963.
He hits like 700 in high school.
He does. Things that I will never forget for some reason.
And I think Manny Ramirez hit like 997 in high school or something. Same town, I think. Maybe baseball's not very good there. Although Manny's a Hall of Famer and Sean was a 2-time All-Star, so I guess maybe it was all right. Yeah, this was the iconic Dodger team of the infield, at least, of my youth. Right. Garvey, Lopes, Russell, and Say. Bill Russell played shorts. Bill Russell had an amazing career. He won 10 NBA championships and played shortstop for the Dodgers.
And then managed the Dodgers and also coached the Celtics.
I don't know how did he find the time? And famously, the Cubs, Theo Epstein didn't draft Corey Seager because he was too tall to play shortstop. It was like, did you see Bill Russell play shortstop? He's almost 7 foot tall, Theo, and he handled it just fine. I think Corey Seager at 6'3". I don't think it's disqualifying.
And then Bill Russell guarded Michael Jordan in the 97 NBA. Oh no, that was Brian Russell.
Yeah, Brian, don't call me Byron, even though I spell my name weird.
He does. Well, he doesn't, but his mom and dad did.
Are you sure Joe Ferguson wasn't one of the try MVPs? He hit 143 that year.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I don't think he was.
There are some good former Cubs on this Dodger team. Jay Johnstone.
Yeah.
Candy Maldonado. Well, maybe not.
He
good.
Was? Wow.
Candy played in. He was 20 years old. Played in 11 games that year. He was not on. I'm sure he wasn't on the World Series roster. Bert Hooton, who's not he was already a former Cub by that point. The big tub of goo was in the Dodger bullpen.
Terry Forster. Oh my God.
What a bunch. But the 81 Dodgers not going to be playing in the World Series. We get the current Dodgers. This is one of those World Series that everybody always says they want. Right? It's the two best players.
Right.
Aaron Judge and Shohei. You throw Juan Soto in there, and it's a lot. And Mookie.
And Mooker.
There's a lot of
4 of the 10 best players, something like that.
There's a lot of star power. The Fox has to be happy because it's 2 huge fan bases. And then you find yourself rooting against it while the playoffs are going. You're like, I know the Guardians, they'd probably ruin the World Series, but would it be fun if they beat the Yankees? And I actually found myself rooting for the Mets, something I didn't think I'd ever
How about
do.
that?
Yeah.
When push came to shove.
I didn't root for them enough that when unfortunate things would happen to them, I couldn't still enjoy it. Like, that's too bad. But yeah, it's. I
wasn't rooting against the Mets. I liked, they had some nice mojo, and they had a gimmick for every day of the week.
Yeah,
and which I'm not against. I'm actually pro gimmick.
I would start to feel a little affection for them, and then Harrison Bader would pop up out of the dugout, and I'd be like, "Oh, that's right. No, I don't like this. I forgot about you. Why are you wearing a turtleneck? It's 85 degrees there."
Right.
But no, it turned out fine. The Mets gave their obnoxious fan base a very fun, unexpected fun season. So we're not
undeserved.
Yes, absolutely undeserved. So we're not going to feel bad for them. And for the Guardians, I think it was all worth it just for Game 4. Was that the one with Big Christmas with the last gasp home run, and then David Fry with the walk-off? That was a very cool game. So that was their parting gift. Here's a fun game. Now we'll go home. Okay.
I'd had enough of the Guardians between my Minnesota Twins podcasting and just.
Well, they're a rough watch. It's a cobbled together pitching staff and a cobbled together offense. You're just like, Jesus, do you guys do anything well? How did you win 93 games? Oh, that's right. You played the American League Central. That's how you did it. Congratulations. Now go home. I thought there was some interesting stuff happened in the ALCS, like the Aaron Boone a couple of times putting Anthony Rizzo in for defense, and Anthony immediately misplaying a ball. One was like the very first pitch. There's a grounder to his left that just kept rolling. It's like, Anthony, did you not stretch when he came into the game?
The ball will find you. It's not supposed to be that fast, though.
Yeah. Well, they put him in because they wanted the ball to find him.
Right.
Like, well, good. Put Anthony in. He can handle this. Oh shit! There it goes. Yeah, and then there's this huge debate that Bob Costas appears to be the only one having it. He had it during the DS, and then he brought it up, and he keeps talking about it. And is Giancarlo Stanton a Hall of Famer?
Are you asking?
Yeah, I'm going to ask you because you're a Hall of Fame voter. You going to vote for him? You can't vote for him this year because I don't think he's on the ballot because he hasn't retired.
He's still playing.
He runs like he's retired, but everything else still works. He's
starting to run a little better. He was. Mm-hmm. I know people were getting on Costas for saying it looked like Giancarlo's such an old man, but at the beginning of the playoffs, he definitely was running worse than he is now.
Yes.
I looked this up. He's not a Hall of Famer, not yet, and probably won't be. If he can get himself into the Big Papi zone, which he's not yet, he's only got I want to say 45 WAR, and I think he's got to get at least 10 more, probably 15. And he's 34 years old. And he's always creaky. And I just don't. He's got 429 home runs.
Yeah.
And a really good postseason resume. You know, he wins a World Series. That will help. Whether that's right or not, I don't know. But he's not there yet. He needs a late career surge, or it's not going to happen.
Yeah, you're right. 44.7 WAR, the average Hall of Fame right fielder, which is what he's classified as, 71.7 or 71.1.
Yeah, he doesn't need to get there, but he needs to get to like 60, maybe.
Yeah.
And there's lots of guys who should be in the Hall of Fame ahead of him who aren't.
Right.
There's that too, but that doesn't always matter. It'll depend on who else is a candidate and how they're a candidate, and but he won't get my, support or whatever if I'm still voting then. And who knows, unless he puts on a late career surge.
Do you have a better or worse chance than Jerry Mumphrey?
I love the 81 Yankees references, though. The Ken Landreau, if you will, of the Yankees.
Oh God,
they're very similar.
I will pick it. If they try to put Kenny Landreau in the Hall of Fame, I'll pick it. I don't even know why. I just will. Yeah, Giancarlo's career postseason slash line: 269, 342, 677.
That's good.
That's
how many at bats though?
130.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Aided, of course, by the additional playoffs levels.
Yeah. This appears to have been his first good ALCS. That's the round he had struggled in.
Huh.
No, that's not completely right. No, well, he only played in 2 games in the 1 and 19. So yeah. But yeah, he has been a very good postseason player. And I think you're right. They didn't have to like pinch run for him automatically late in games in the CS like they were in the DS. In the DS, he hit into that one double play where Bob was like, "It's not his fault."
Right.
It's not his what?
Leave him alone.
Don't boo him. The man can't run.
Don't even look at him.
The most athletic looking person you've ever seen can't run. Just leave him alone. Think of the children. He's been an MVP. He's been a 5-time All-Star. He's been a 2-time Silver Slugger. He's been an All-Star MVP. Very important. And he's won a home run derby.
Home run derbish.
So that I think probably puts him over the top. If I'm a Hall of Fame voter, though, when he's up, which I'm sure I'm going to be, I'm putting him in because he didn't just once, but he twice refused to waive his no trade to go to the Cardinals.
What did he know? He knew something. He listened to this podcast.
Yeah, he's like, fuck, I'm not going there. He played there. He's like, I'm not going there. Play in front of those crackers? No. Send me somewhere else. I'm not going there. So I've always had a little affection for Giancarlo.
Me too. I've got, when he was still with the Marlins, I went to, did I go to spring training or something like that? And I got a little Giancarlo Stanton doll for my kids. And they still have it. So sometimes the dog steals it. But it's a little stuffed toy of him in a Marlins uniform. In the good Marlins uniform, the last good one. About 2017 or so.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
But yeah, so it'll be nice to see Shohei in a World Series.
Yeah,
he's getting all of it. Here he was, the guy had never played in a playoff series. Then it looked like they were going to bow out embarrassingly to the Padres, and then here he is. All of a sudden, he's in the World Series with his dog. It'll be fun.
Mike Trout looking on forlornly,
wistfully, staring out a window and somewhere in suburban Philadelphia.
Yes.
wondering,
should I go to my golf course? Is my golf course finished yet?
Yeah. Why did I sign that long extension with the Angels when I could have signed with the Phillies instead? Well,
But
because
still
they
team friendly, they could move him.
Because they gave you like $300 million, Mike. That's why. Oh, that's right. Now I remember why I did it. Hanging out on the Weather Channel, wherever he's doing his knee. He's a weather buff.
Yeah. He is.
Fox should hire him to do the weather for the World Series.
Mm-hmm.
Just have him in. He can hang out. So World Series starts on Friday. Why do they just all of a sudden take a week off?
Well, it turned out that way. Now they do have, if I was reading about this.
Okay.
And if we had had really short ALCSs, they could have moved the World Series up to today.
Okay.
They could have moved it to the 22nd if we had either two sweeps or almost. There was one 5-game series, but if we had two really short ALCSs, or if we had two ALCSs, that would have been a story. Two short league championship series, then they could have moved it up a few days to today. They could have started today. It was like an either or kind of thing. If it's really short, move it up. But if there's like any leeway, no. So it was possible. It was possible. But the Guardians went on too long. The Mets went on too long. So
all right. Well, that makes a little more sense, I guess. I still don't understand why all the days off.
Why they couldn't, I think they couldn't move it up. They had to pick like two outcomes, because then you get into, well, we don't want to have it go up against whatever, Sunday football, or I don't know how let's see, Friday, Saturday. Yeah, they're off Sunday. So they wanted it to work out from the point that they started it. It's like they could get a similar type of days if they did it like that. If they had started it on Tuesday or Friday, but if they Wednesday, Thursday wasn't an option.
Okay, it was too close to Tuesday because we could have had a game last night, right? Wouldn't that have been Game 7?
Could have. Well, I mean, theoretically, yeah. Although they like to have that workout day too.
Yeah.
So
I was thinking the NFL's so concerned about the possibility of an NLCS Game 7 that they scheduled 2 Monday Night Football games.
Your puny sport doesn't bother me.
Oh, are you guys still playing? That's cute.
How quaint.
Let us know when it's over.
We should have AI George Carlin come in and do that bit, in baseball.
Well, I saw the Saturday Night Live movie.
Yeah.
And I thought it was pretty good. And there's a whole thing in there about Carlin. He did not, after he signed up he was the first guest host.
Yeah.
And once he got there and he saw what was going on, he was very skeptical about and a little hostile. And apparently he did so much coke before he was supposed to go on that he got lockjaw, and they were literally massaging his face to try to loosen it up enough that he could talk. And when he came out, that's the monologue he did. He did the football baseball thing.
Right.
I think he did 3 monologues. They brought him out 3 times. He wasn't in any skits.
Yeah.
He just did
his act.
He just did stand-up sets. 3 of them interspersed through the thing. But I thought that was interesting.
We did get to see George Carlin act at some point. I know he was he played a priest in Kevin Smith movie, I think. And there's probably other examples.
He's in he's in one of the Ben Affleck, either Geely or Jersey Girl, or they're basically, I think they're the same movie but different people. Nobody liked either one of them. He's in that. But yeah, the guy who played Cousin Greg on Succession was cast to play Jim Henson, and he's really good as Jim Henson. But then Benny Safdie was going to be Andy Kaufman, and he had a conflict. He couldn't do it. And so the director called Cousin Greg, and he's like, can you do Andy Kaufman? And he's like, well, yeah, I guess I could do Andy Kaufman instead of Jim Henson. He's like, no, we're just going to have you do both. He's like, okay. It seems very Saturday Night Live, actually, to have one guy.
It does.
And he's really good as both. And he's, the Jim Henson with the full beard and stuff. I'm guaranteed there were people who left the movie didn't realize that the same guy played both characters.
I didn't. I've seen the preview for it. I didn't know that was him.
Yeah.
So
that was pretty good. All right. Well, I guess back to it.
Okay. If you must.
It's incredible to me that the Dodger bullpen game thing worked as well as it did. It didn't work. It worked great against the Padres. It bombed the first time against the Dodgers against the Mets, and then it worked again. And they're going to have to do it in the World Series. They don't have enough starters to not do it. And so I have a hard time figuring out who's going to win this World Series, which I think is good because that means it should be exciting. Because I feel like the Dodgers should be able to navigate around the two really good hitters in the Yankee lineup.
You would think other teams would have been able to.
That's what I was going to say, but nobody else seems to be able to do it. So maybe you can't.
Right.
But they're very similar teams, very top-heavy teams. The Dodgers, depending on whether Freddie Freeman can cram his foot into a shoe, have 4 guys, where the Yankees have 3 now, with Giancarlo showing up.
Right.
And then both are just going to kind of wing it, pitching-wise. So it should...
I think what it really means in the bigger picture is we're never going to be rid of it now. The bullpen game, the Dodgers doing this, even though that was out of necessity and injuries, everybody's going to see, oh, that's what we need to do. There, we can save on starting pitching. We just need some more relievers, and we can do that. It's just going to encourage teams to do this.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's good for like the pitchers. I think they're like abused. And I also feel like it encourages a certain that whole mediocrity thing. It's like adding more playoff spots. It's just it's a crutch. And it encourages teams to find these guys who can pitch well for an inning and not really develop any more other parts of the pitching staff. And it's kind of it's one of those things that baseball seemed to be wanting to get away from.
Yeah. Like
the whole, you can't bring in one pitcher for one batter thing, 3 batters and pitch clocks and all that. It just, it stops the game too much. And I think teams should be able to live with a starting pitcher that goes 5 or 6 innings and gives up 3 or 4 runs, and it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
And they act like, oh no, we can't have that. But the relief pitchers end up giving up runs anyway, and then they're overused, and then they stink at the end in some cases. Emmanuel Clase, Guardians, and all that. So you don't even get the result that you wanted. And so that's how I feel stronger about this than I do a lot of other things that baseball's done. I think it's just bad news for people like me that now everybody's going to be emboldened to have a team of 12 relief pitchers.
Well, I knew things had gotten out of hand a couple of years ago when baseball made it so you could have 13 pitchers. You weren't allowed to carry more than that.
Yeah.
And Scott Service acted like it would be impossible to navigate a game with fewer than with only 13 pitchers on your staff.
Right.
It's like, good Lord. One thing when Mike Donahue and I were going through all the seasons with the Cubs, we go back when we were in the 80s, we would like count how many pitchers did they use in the entire season.
Right.
And sometimes they wouldn't get to 13. And now everybody uses 25 to get through a season.
Right.
Rob Manfred was on with John Urand on the, what does he call that podcast? The Audible, I think.
Puck? No.
Yeah, it's Puck, but he's got a podcast.
Oh, he's got a name for the podcast.
I think it's called The Audible. Ha, clever. And he asked Rob about basically what could you do And Rob kind of hemmed and hawed around the stuff we've heard. They could maybe they'll limit you to 11 pitchers and figure it out. One of the things he did talk about is they've made it too easy to reload your bullpen, to just do a line change and basically in 3 days use all your pitchers and then send a bunch of them down to the minors and bring a bunch back and just keep doing it. He didn't seem to be for, and I don't really know how it would work. There was this whole thing where they're going to have to go 5 innings. You're just going to force them to stand out there and just keep getting shelled.
Right.
It's like, I don't think that one's going to work. There's been the talk about tying the DH and the starting pitcher together. And if your starting pitcher goes out before the 5th, you lose the DH for the rest of the game. If he makes it through the 5th, then that's your reward. You get to keep the DH. I think I'm talking about adding extra pressure to some young starting pitcher. It's like, Shohei's coming out. if I don't get 6 more outs. I don't know what to do. And it's, everybody's got a pitch lab now, and everybody's got guys, training to throw 110 miles an hour and just do it for an inning. And everybody's got Tommy John disease surgery, punch cards, get 10, the 11th is free. And they just seem to want to do it that way. And then it's really hard to hit. That's why offense is still down, because you've got to face a brand new, fresh idiot throwing, 108 with a sweeper that is still just a slider with a better PR agency. So I don't know what you do, but you're right. This is, this was successful now on the biggest stage. And so and it's a cheaper way to do it.
Right.
Which is the most important thing for the teams. It's like, oh, man, we don't have to pay these guys hardly anything. This would be great.
I don't know if tying the DH together, there haven't been a lot of great DHs lately. It seems like that's...
Yeah, well, that was the other thing. When the DH spread, it sounds like it was a disease. when it infected the National League. It's not like it was, all right, we got another highly paid slugger. Most teams just use it to rest guys.
Right.
They kind of rotate through, and the Cubs finally did it this year. David Ross could never figure it out. So complicated. But Counsell was, basically using it to keep a guy in the lineup but get him off his feet. And so most teams don't go out and get some big hairy chested slugger to be their DH. They just use the guys they've already got. So it would be, and then it would just teams could be strategic about it. I think if the idea was, well, if you ran a bullpen game, then your DH is doomed. He's not going to make it up. Well, they would account for that in the lineup.
Right.
Shohei wouldn't be the DH that day. He'd get that day off, and then you'd have him around to pinch hit late in the game when you really needed it.
Right.
So I don't know. The other thing Rob talked about was the Diamond Sports thing and the RSNs, and basically it looks like they're going to end up, Major League Baseball is going to end up with the rights to a bunch more teams except for the Braves and Diamond wants to keep somebody weird, like the Marlins maybe? Somebody wouldn't think would have any value, but they want to keep the Braves really bad.
There was another. Did you say there was another team that they wanted to keep?
Yeah, there was a second one now. But they must want to keep them for, maybe the rights are super cheap. I don't know. The Braves are the main team. That's the one they have wanted to keep. And then baseball would have to absorb the others, which baseball doesn't mind doing because they think it'll get them closer to their dream of no blackouts.
Right.
And then he did talk about that, about how the blackouts can't really go away until every team has renegotiated their RSNs, because they've all negotiated into the deals because the teams like them.
Yeah.
Especially small market teams. Big market teams don't really seem to care. They're in there because they're always in there, but they've talked about it before, like the Cubs and the Yankees and the Mets and the Red Sox. If you told them tomorrow the blackouts were going away, they wouldn't care. They feel like they can sell the rights the same, and it might even open up they know they've got fans being blacked out. that will all of a sudden get their games. So they're fine.
Right.
But it's just a weird thing. But I thought Rob talked about it in a way that was different than I'd heard. Basically, they talk about how baseball has become a regional sport. It's regional all season, and then it's only national really in the playoffs. And Rob said the blackout rule created that. It basically made it really hard for people to see other teams. And so the easy thing was to see your team. And he said that was a great benefit for a while. And then it wasn't. But the rules stayed. And they couldn't convince the owners to get rid of the rule. And it started to shrink the audience in certain places. But rights fees were good. And so the teams didn't care. And now they're like, well, how come we can't sell our national rights for more? And they're like, well, because we protected the local rights so much to our own detriment.
I've always thought, and I don't think I'm the only person that thought this, that one of the reasons they did things like that, they encouraged hyper locality. That's not a word. Was to keep the national profiles of the stars of the game, to limit them a little bit, so there was a financial benefit to not having to pay them as much because they weren't national figures like people in other sports can be.
I could see that. Some of those owners have some pretty crass, ridiculous ideas. And honestly, that was to their detriment too, right? Like if you had a guy who liked playing in a medium-sized market, but was a big national brand, he could make a lot of extra money and maybe be more willing to play for you at what you were trying to offer him than a guy who you were intentionally limiting his national brand.
Right.
And was going to go not only get more money in a bigger market, but figure he could increase his brand in another market.
Mm-hmm.
I think Ken Griffey Jr. left Seattle because Seattle is where it is. It wasn't anywhere near anything. And his white family didn't like living there, and he didn't like having to fly 2,000 miles in any direction to get anywhere. More than it was just, well, I got to get out of here because I hate playing for this organization, or I hate playing in this town. I think it was mostly geography, because Junior was one of the few guys who was a national brand in a small market.
Right.
And, all he had to do that was just be one of the greatest players of all time. So there's a lesson for you kids out there. Just become one of the greatest players of all time. And you can make a lot of money from Nike in addition to your salary.
Profit.
Yeah. Yada, yada, yada. Profit. Yeah, so it's weird. You look at the matchup, and typically you would be like, all right, well, we're going to have these pitching matchups, and we're going to do this. And I don't know that anybody knows what any of them are going to be.
Right.
Garrett Cole, I would guess, is still going to start game one. I don't know who the Dodgers are going to start. And even when they got we got this great start out of Walker Buehler, and they did. He pitched really well. They got him through 5 innings, and they couldn't get him out of the game fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a very weird. It's a very weird situation, considering the, typically what you've seen in these teams that go deep in the playoffs is they're relying on starting pitchers to increase their workload. We're gonna try to get you three starts out of those 7 games, and then maybe we're even gonna bring out of the bullpen in a game. We're gonna do whatever, and we're kind of at the opposite of that now, which is, what's the bare minimum we could pitch you?
Is there a number we could come to where you'd be agreeable? 1 1/3 innings, 7 batters.
Yeah, I mean, the days of. I'm sure it'll happen again. Maybe next year. There are still some great pitchers, and it could be that next year we get a team where Game 7, the bullpen door flies open, and the guy who pitched the night before comes in to pitch, 3 or 4 innings.
Right.
There was I forget who was telling the story. Oh, it was Andy McCullough was telling a story about in the Clayton Kershaw book that he wrote. He interviewed some of Clayton's peers, and one of them was Madison Bumgarner. And he said, I'm doing a Zoom with Madison to interview him for the book. And I was like, I was talking about Madison for a while, about his career. I was like, well, he said, Andy's like, well, I was there covering the Royals when you came into Game 7 to pitch the last 4 innings. He said, all Madison does, it doesn't say a word. In the Zoom, he just sees his hand makes a 5.
There are 5 innings.
And he goes, oh, that's right. You pitched the last 5 innings. Yeah, that's right.
Sorry, buddy.
Yeah, because Bumgarner like the Clayton Kershaw's opposite.
Yeah, is Bizarro Kershaw.
Yeah, the guy who went. Kershaw struggled in the playoffs, and Madison, he turned into when the playoffs started, he turned into the greatest pitcher of all time. He did give up a 3-run homer to Jake Arrieta in the 2016 NLDS, however.
Right. Well, it was over by then. It passed his prime.
Yeah, his prime had ended in his start before when he shut out the Mets in the wildcard game.
Right.
Little did we know that was it. Yeah, so it's typically when you go to preview one of these things, that's what you do. What are the pitching matchups going to be and whatever? Like, wow, who knows?
Right.
Doesn't matter.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
Who knows? Literally, who knows?
Yeah.
They don't know. We'll find out later, like everyone else.
For game 1, they're just gonna, 3 pitchers will run to the mound. One of them will pick the ball up, and the other 2 will just run back into the dugout, fake everybody out. Craig Counsell's like, why don't they should start Wade Miley for 1 batter. The strategy never failed, except the one time I did it. I always thought, to me, that was just the most ridiculous thing ever.
Yeah.
Was the 1 batter that's what ruined playoff starters. It was Craig Counsell and his little gimmick. I'll get the Dodgers to play all their right-handed batters, and we'll only pitch 1 batter. And Dave Roberts looked at it and went, fuck that. I'm playing my regular lineup. Craig's like, this didn't work.
Who knew?
Oh, well. I was telling you right before we started that I saw a trailer for a Netflix documentary on the 2004 Boston Red Sox. I don't know if you know this, but the Red Sox that year were down 3-0 to the Yankees. And they came back to win the series, and then they went on to win the World Series. This is a story that nobody talks about. Yeah, it's thank God someone is finally going to shine some light on the 2004 Red Sox.
Well, you said that you like the Bill Simmons 30 for 30.
I thought it was fine. I thought when I watched it, I'm like, okay, that was pretty good. Now we don't need this. We don't need any more of this.
This is it, right?
This is it. This is the document. There we go. Boom. And no, it's still coming back at us.
I would like to know what else there is to know.
Yeah, that's the thing. I feel like even in the moment, like we knew everything that was going on. Like
it wasn't undercovered as it happened.
No one has unearthed any like earth-shattering revelations about that.
Right.
We lived it. We saw it. And it was neat. I'll admit I watched it. I was just jealous because the Cubs had flamed out the year before, and really I think people should. To me, it's more impressive if you're down 3-1 in the World Series and you come back and win. I think that's what they should be doing the documentaries on. Just so I want to see Ben Zobrist interviewed again with his aw shucks. Just happy to be here. I'm not going to tell you anything interesting. Interviews. Great.
That's a great segue into something. I don't know if you want to get off the Red Sox documentary entirely.
Yeah, I'm fine. I don't want to belabor it any more than I do not want to belabor the point that I think that that thing has been belabored.
I've been invited on a podcast, a different podcast called The Pod of Fame, I think it is.
Oh.
And it's a guy who talks about the Hall of Fame. And the focus, he wants to ask me about, does Ben Zobrist have a case for the Hall of Fame? And I had not looked into it really too much, other than I know that he's coming up on the ballot. Do you have an opinion about this? That is, I don't care how objective or subjective. What do you think?
I can't imagine that he does.
Yeah, I mean that was my first thought too.
I mean,
But
he was a really nice, complimentary player. His versatility, especially early in his career, but even with the 16 Cubs, he played second, he played left, he played all over the place. He was a great signing by he was a great acquisition like several times.
right,
Like when the Royals got him for their World Series run, when the Cubs went out and signed him for their World Series run. He was a expansion pick. Is that right?
that sounds right. Yeah.
The Rays took him from somebody.
Oh no, look stuff up again.
Now we're looking stuff up. No, he was a trade.
Yeah, it was too far into. That's like 10 years into races. He didn't come up to. He was 25. That hurts him right there. I mean, he had a 14-year career.
Yeah,
that he did not join the Rays until he was 25 years old. That kills. I remember he was a good prospect. People are like, this guy's going to be pretty good. And then we're like, we're waiting. And it turned out that he was.
he got traded in his career for Aubrey Huff,
Right.
John Jaso, Boog Powell, not that Boog Powell,
Right.
Daniel Robertson, Aaron Brooks, and Sean Manaea.
Nicknames Zorilla, which I remember, or Zobi-Wan Kenobi. Do you remember that?
I do not
Zobi-Wan
remember that.
Kenobi?
No.
All right. That's a baseball reference nickname that is.
Did anybody ever call him
dubious?
Zorro the Gay Blade? Was that ever one of his nicknames? I don't remember that.
It's George Hamilton's finest hour.
His most similar players. Stop me when you get to a Hall of Famer. Don Money, one of my pals.
Your personal hero, Don Money.
Harland Clift. Melvin Mora.
Yeah.
Willie Jones. Ken Keltner. What's Ken Keltner most famous for?
Stopping Joe DiMaggio's hitting streak.
Exactly.
Yes.
Al Smith, who also was the first Catholic to run for president. Jason.
Right. In alternate history, Al Smith leads to a dystopian future as president because FDR wasn't president.
Al Smith was funny, and when he was announced that he lost, he said that he sent the Pope a one-word telegram: unpack. Because that was the thing, was everyone he was campaigning against the Pope was going to run the country if you elected a Catholic president. I
see. And also he would his real funny joke would be he'd dump beer on his head. Like Al Smith on the 59 White Sox. He would do it all himself though. That was the gimmick.
The other similar players, Jason Hayward. Andy Van Slyke. Which is good. The Andy Van Slyke Ben Zobrist comp seems like a good one to me.
I like that, yeah.
Juan Samuel and Lloyd Mosby. Not a lot of
Mosby's autograph somewhere.
Not a lot of Hall of Famers in there. I would say if we were pondering whether Giancarlo Stanton was a Hall of Famer, poor Ben doesn't stand much of a chance, I don't think.
27th best second baseman of all time. So it's interesting. He compares favorably to Tony Phillips. That was a player that I was thinking of.
Yeah.
When the guy's like, well, is he a Hall of Famer? Well, is Tony Phillips a Hall of Famer? He is not, but that was a guy who people liked in the way that they liked Ben Zobrist.
Yeah.
So
they have a lot of similarities. They're very versatile players. They both, on occasion, would attempt to climb into the stands to beat up fans. Ben was famous for that.
All right, so he's not like Tony Phillips in every way, but
it's funny that so what would you, I'm sorry, what did you say? 27th best second baseman of all time?
According to Jay Jaffe's JAWS system.
He played fewer than half of his career games at second base. But he played second base more than any other position.
Well, you got to put him somewhere.
Yeah.
Now he's not that far off. He's like 7 WAR off from Bobby Doerr and 5 from Nellie Fox. And their JAWSs are similars. Bobby Doerr is a 44.1. JAWS is for people who have no idea what I'm talking about. It's sort of a what were your best 7 years like? And it's just a way to, when you were great, when you were at your best, how good were you, and how do you compare to other great players? That's what JAWS is.
Yeah.
In the WAR sense. So he's kind of like, he's in between Bobby Doerr and Nellie Fox on the negative side. He's above Johnny Evers, Tony Lazzeri, and Bid McPhee on the positive side. So those are 3 guys. Those are 5 players who are in the Hall of Fame, and he is among them. So this is sort of where his best argument will come from. He's better than some people who are in the Hall of Fame. It's true. He is. He would not be the worst guy in the Hall of Fame.
No, still Harold Baines. His career postseason slash line is 241.
Not that great.
306, 377. And I was looking at this. So in the 2016 World Series, when he won the MVP, even though it probably should have been either Chris Bryant or John Lester. I think they did just so that they wouldn't make Addison Russell World Series MVP. 357, 419, 500. So he had a very good World Series. He had the biggest hit in Cub history, the double that won the World Series. Although Miguel Montero will tell you that his single later is the one that won it because Carl Edwards managed to give up a run before that.
Right.
But one of the things we were remembering last week on the Twitters when the Bob Nightingale was bragging about the Dodgers shutout streak and how they're unstoppable. And I remembered that they shut the Cubs out twice in a row in the 2016 NLCS. And then Ben Zobrist magic bunt in Game 4 got the Cub offense finally rolling, and they won 4, 5, and 6 and went to the World Series. That was one of 3 hits he had in the NLCS. He hit 150 in the ALCS or in the NLCS that year, but it doesn't matter how many you get; it's when you get them.
Right.
Yeah, it is interesting. He's a really good player for a long time, but he was known mostly, I think, for how many ways he could help you instead of like overwhelming. Instead of being great at anything, he was good at a lot of stuff,
which definitely has a value because not a lot of players, although not a lot of players are asked to do that either. I wonder how many maybe could if circumstances asked for them to be so versatile. That is something that I think I don't know that WAR addresses, like how well you can be a competent fill-in at a different position. Like there's a player on the Twins, Willie Castro, who WAR was not kind to this year, but he played a lot of games at short and a lot in center at these high leverage, difficult positions. If you're a capable player, does WAR address that? And is that one reason why Zobrist's WAR isn't higher, because we're not giving enough credit to him just being able to do things and doing them competently, whereas other players aren't asked to do that. So I think you can at least rhetorically make a case that he's a little underrated because of that. So statistically.
Yeah. Yeah, and his versatility showed up with the Cubs he was the second baseman for most of the. Well, I'm not thinking that's right. He was second base for a lot of the season. And then his ability to go play left allowed them to just give that job to Javi. And Javi ended up having a great playoffs and was the co-MVP of the NLCS. But the Cubs had all kinds of versatility on the team. They would, for a lot of the John Lester starts, they would put, in the regular season, they would move Bryant out to left to play Javi at third.
Right.
To basically take away the bunt. Because Javi and Rizzo would stand right up the nostril of the batter and just dare them to bunt.
Yes.
But it allowed Joe to do and Joe loved to do it. He could do all kinds of funky stuff with his lineup because he could just stick Ben wherever he had a hole. So, yeah, that's interesting. That's a good. That's one I would not have thought of. I don't think. And I think
me neither, but I think it can be turned into a fun, full conversation about players like that.
Well, like you said, it becomes then if you judge him on what we think the standard things are, he's not going to make it. But what if there's a kind of an intangibles argument that he has intangibles, that he has a combination of intangibles and numbers that few other players have ever had. He was he was a more productive Tony Phillips. Maybe they did the same. You could stick those guys in the same positions, but Ben had more better offensive seasons than Tony Phillips did.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't try to, other than maybe trying to beat up his wife's pastor, I don't think he ever attacked anybody, as far as I know. There's a couple of things. If he's not in the Hall of Fame, the shoes he wore the last couple of years for the Cubs should be, because they have to be the only mall walking shoes ever worn in games by a baseball player. He looked like he was wearing those they were like all black, and they looked like orthopedic, like almost like the Sketcher things. Remember the Joe Montana ones where you could like rock on them? That's what he looked like he was wearing.
Yes.
But one big thing that has to go against inducting him into the Hall of Fame was the fact that we had to listen to a good 15 seconds of his wife's singing every time he batted for like the first 3 years he was a Cub. I think he finally got rid of it about the time he got rid of her. But if I hear "I Feel Alive" one more time, I think I'm gonna. It's like I'm gonna Yamo blow my brains out.
Do you think that he didn't really he knew all along something was amiss with her, and he just kind of placated her by playing her music, or do you think he really liked it?
Oh, I think he really liked it. Yeah. No, I have a feeling that whole thing was a complete shock to him. Yeah. Poor Ben.
Middle name Ernest.
That's perfect. From beautiful Eureka, Illinois.
Him and Ronald Reagan, right?
Yep.
So, and he went, "Eureka, what's going on?" She's...
Eureka, what is this Bible study with no pants? You want to be closer to the Lord. Okay. All right, I'll just let me know when you guys are done.
Oh.
Yeah, that was a weird time in Cub history too, where he voluntarily went on the like suspended list, to go deal with that whole thing, and then the Cubs didn't have to pay him, and then they took that money and they signed Craig Kimbrell. It's like they need. Oh no, we don't have enough money. We can't afford to sign. Oh, but we can sign Craig Kimbrell. It's like, Jesus, what kind of team are we running here?
Oh.
Well, all right. Well, let's wrap this up with who do you like? Who do you like in the World Series?
I think Dodgers in 7. I've got I think that's what it's going to be. I don't. They're just, even with the injuries, I think they're just a little better than the Yankees. I think the Yankees have. I don't want to say they've had an easy time, because playing the Guardians is difficult. As much as the Guardians lack certain things, you still got to beat them, and they made it hard to do so. So I think that Dodgers in 7.
Yeah,
and then finally, what I like about this is that the people can shut up about. I've said this before about how 2020 was a fake World Series because it was the COVID year, when it was. I know it was a shortened season, but it was a longer playoffs, and they had to do in the bubble. And to not give the Dodgers any credit for winning the World Series in 2020 is just, you're really going out of your way to show your disgust for the Dodgers, which on the surface, that's fine if you want to have disgust for the Dodgers, but let's be kind of real about it. So,
yeah, I'm one of the people who like to needle them with you won the fake World Series, but I honestly think that might have been the hardest World Series anyone's ever had to win, because everything was so weird.
Yes.
And then we're pretty sure, right, that they had at least one World Series blatantly stolen from them.
That too. And
the fact that as much as I don't like them, they run their team exactly the way I think the Cubs should run theirs. There's no reason they can't. Financially or anything. It actually kind of makes me mad that the Guggenheim group, those people are all from Chicago. It's like, couldn't you guys have bought the Cubs?
Oh man.
But
I didn't know that.
Bud had to steer, at least the principal, the big cheese, the guy with all the Guggenheim money is a Chicago guy who would have been happy to have bought the Cubs, but Bud had it all set up that the Rays could buy the Cubs. So that was
your middle point about having things stolen from you. The Yankees have beef with the Astros over that. I don't think the Dodgers win necessarily. The Dodgers don't look as sympathetic there because it's the Yankees in that case. So
that's true.
But
well. But yeah, and I think there are people who think Dave Roberts isn't a good manager because they don't win the World Series, even though they win a crap load of games.
Right.
All the time.
I'm not sure. I don't know how. I mean, he seems to be okay. He does make some questionable decisions, but I don't know like how many guys would have done better either.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, it's tough to match with Aaron Boone.
Yeah, Yankees fans do not care for him in any way and haven't. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, it'll be interesting. We'll see what happens. Oh, I didn't pick. I agree. I think the Dodgers probably win it. I'll give them. I'll say they can win it in 6.
All right.
When they come back because they have home field. So. All right. Well, we'll see what happens.
Okay. We'll see you next time, Andy.
All right.
Many of us have herpes.
No, I thought it generally sucked. I didn't think it was a specific suck. I thought it was like an all-encompassing type of suck. So, we're going to try and rectify that. But for right now, I'm going to be pretty pissed about it.
It's fitting. It's got to be done with one of the best games of all time. Just unbelievable. I mean, got to congratulate the Dolan family.
Sean, my podcast co-host Andy, you were his favorite player growing up.
Oh, thank you so much. Awesome.